Hi there, writing enthusiasts. Welcome to AI Writers Connection. I'm your host, Mira Gold, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of AI genre and style prompt creation that you can use inside a Sudowrite story engine. Whether you're a writer seeking inspiration or a fan of genres like urban fantasy, sci-fi alien romance, motorcycle club, dark mafia romance, young adult academy, or contemporary fiction, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll explore how to craft style and genre prompts for AI using excerpts of your writing or even parts of your chapter outline. It's a method that can unleash a new level of creativity, and I'm thrilled to guide you through it. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and drop a comment or two below if you have any questions or thoughts. And hey, come join our AI Writer Connection Discord to chat with fellow writers and AI enthusiasts. So, are you ready to get started today? Currently on the screen, you see the prompt I created to identify or isolate the genre as well as the style of a body of work. This works with either an excerpt from one of your existing bodies or using the chapter beats for something you are currently working on or the summary. Now, why would you want to use the chapter outline or the chapter beats within an outline for a body that you're writing? Because it would be unique to your specific body of work. So if you have 30 chapters, you could actually do this little exercise for all 30 chapters and have it pull something specific for each one of your chapters. Or you could ask it to give you something more generalized that can be used across all chapters. Let's go ahead and take a look at what kind of information I'm looking for in step one. Step one says describe the writing style of the sample below taken from a genre fiction novel. Now, I want you to fill in your own genre. If it is a science fiction romance or say it is a psychological thriller, I want you to put that information into your step one. We want the AI to describe the writing style to assist in future AI prompts to generate fiction words similar to the sample. So what are the things we're looking for? We want to know the elements. We want to know the central of that specific genre. For example, is there love, romance? Is it good versus evil? Tropes are going to come into play here. Your tropes, your themes, symbolism, all comes into play. And that's why it's important to make sure you have an idea of what direction your story is going. Now, we're also going to be looking at the setting. Where and when does a story take place? This is important because if you're writing, say, a historic romance, but you don't stipulate that, then you could actually have the wrong type of verbiage used inside of your book. What if you're writing a Highland romance and it ends up giving you dialect or verbiage, the Civil War? You want to make sure that you're being specific. We also want to look at plot structure. We want to look at character archetypes. We want to look at the tone and mood, definitely the tone and mood of the genre. This is one of the more important ones within this grouping, your tone and your mood. We also want to look at the pacing. How does the story unfold? What kind of tension is there? Is it coming across as a slow burn or is it really fast paced? What kind of conflict and stakes are involved? What is the symbolism in the imagery? What kind of motifs are there? What about literary devices or the language and dialogue style? We also want to look at some of the world building elements and the visual and sensory descriptions. Your visual and sensory descriptions are really, as are your moral and ethical considerations. And we also want to look at the subgenres. That's why it's important you have a really well fleshed out outline, especially if you're going to use your outline or your chapter beats for each chapter to run this specific prompt on. In addition to running it for the genre, we also want to pull the following information for the style. Earlier for the genre, we looked at the tone and mood. Well, that was for the genre. Now we're looking at the tone and mood for the actual character or for the author type narrative. If this is a first person POV, then we definitely need to know what kind of character we have. Is the character going to be formal, casual, sarcastic, dark, playful, happy-go-lucky? We need to know what kind of a voice this is to be written in. We also need to know the POV. Is it first person, third person? We need to know, what about the sentence structure? How is it written? Does it have long, complex sentences or short, punchy ones? What about the dialogue style? How does the character speak? Is it natural, stylized, formal, slang? What can you tell us about the specific character and the dialogue? That's something that's really important to understanding the style. What about the use of imagery and metaphors? Does the writer use vivid imagery? What about similes, metaphors? If you know specifically that those are some of the things you want inside of your body of work, then you need to let the AI know. Also, the character voice. How is the author going to convey the character's voice, the personality? How is that all being brought forward? What about the pacing? What about the thematic elements, the humor, the use of literary devices inside of your style also? Right here we have genre conventions. That's actually important too, because depending on what is being used, the author generally has to adhere to certain conventions when they are writing within a certain genre. You would not want to write something that is from a gumshoe type detective PI type story for a historical fiction. So you have to make sure that you understand what those conventions are. Also, world building and the emotional resonance. Those are all things we want to take a look at. Now, this is pretty in depth. I do have some shorter ones that can be used, but if you're really wanting to pinpoint the style, then I would definitely use this longer step. So what we're going to do is go ahead and copy all of this content. Now, notice how it says paste a sample of 1,000 to 2,000 words here for GPT or Claude. You can definitely take this to Claude, but I generally prefer the information that ChatGPT gives me. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to paste this information here, but it's going to give it to me in a Word text. I'm going to go ahead and grab our first excerpt. This is actually an excerpt to a body of work. If I want to match the style of this, then I could input it here and see what chat tells me. Let's also take a look at the information Claude would pull. I'm going to tell Claude to please proceed as indicated by step 1, instructions. And let's go ahead and let that take off. I am going to go back and take a look at what chat is doing. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of information in here, and you might find things in here that you like better than what our second prompt will give. Go over and pick the items that you feel match that story. You want to ensure it encompasses the overall thought of that piece. There are underlying tones of mystery and the unknown. In this setting, it takes place in a dark urban street and alley bathed in eerie neon lights. There is interstellar politics mentioned. In the plot, we know there is an awakening to a new reality. So all of this information comes into play. We have information about our character, our tone, the mood, the pacing. Again, it gives us all of this information that we can pull from, and it's letting us know that is what our excerpt gives, which is why this actually works really well if you plug in your chapter beats, because then it is unique to that specific body of work. I'm going to go back in and grab the next prompt. Let's go up here to the prompts, and I'm going to grab prompt number 2. Now, number 2 says to write a 40-word prompt to direct AI in the generation of prose. We're going to try this 2 different ways. First, we're going to do it as you see it right here. And then the second time we use this prompt, we're going to ask it to give a general 40-word prompt that can go across all chapters. So let's see what it gives us. Let's go ahead and hit enter, and then we'll go look at Claude also. Okay, ChatGPT is having a hard time because it can't seem to find something that it just spit out. Now, this happens from time to time. All you have to do is just go back over, grab the information, and say, you just provided the information, but here it is again. I have no idea why ChatGPT does that from time to time. Sometimes I think it's a fluke. Sometimes I think maybe there's a glitch or maybe an update going through. I don't know. But sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. The AI just has a little blip and forgets everything. And what's interesting is that ChatGPT 4 is supposed to be able to keep 50 pages worth of content. So it shouldn't have needed me to reprompt or provide additional information. Okay, so for style of voice, it's asking to compose a prose that embodies a dark, gritty, and suspenseful tone. Use a mix of long, complex sentences and short, punchy ones to create tension. Now, I do tend to like to use some short, punchy sentences because it does help move the tension forward, especially for my science fiction romance. And I do that because the stories generally move really quick. Instead of taking place over days or weeks or months, usually it's hours to somewhere within the day. And that's why I'm saying I like it to be short and punchy because it moves the story really quick. Now, for the genre and subgenre, it is stating to write a scene set in an urban sci-fi universe. The key word here is universe, because it's letting the AI know that it's otherworldly. It also says with cyberpunk elements, include themes of self-discovery, ancient technology, empowerment, interstellar politics, and the setting should be characterized by dark streets, neon lights, decay, and a blend of action and mystery. So this information will paint a really interesting picture, especially for a sci-fi. Again, our character has that gritty tone. If this is third person or first person, you're definitely going to want to indicate that in your style of voice as well. So let's go ahead and pull these. I'm going to copy those and take those over here into our prompts for our male and females. I am going to indicate that this is for the SFR and that this is actually for the female. And we'll do another one for the male. Let's go ahead and paste those here. And now let's go ahead and go back in and take a look at Claude, because I want to see what Claude did. So Claude gave me information too. It gives me the powers and the ability, the alien tech, the self-discovery, good versus evil. And then for the setting, it does give us that gritty, dark, urban setting again. And it lets us know there are neon lights and graffiti, there's shadows. It talks about the plot devices, the opening scenario, character arcs. It has mood, tone, pacing. And it says, based on these observations, this passage clearly establishes that science fiction setting hints of thematic elements. So let's see what that step 2 prompt gives us. Let me go ahead and grab that toward the end here, and we're going to see what that gives us. So let's go ahead and paste that. Now, again, earlier I had mentioned that you want to make sure you have something that's general if you're going to try and use it across all of your chapters. So here it's saying, after mysteriously developing abilities, the protagonist is in a shadowy neon city. She confronts injustice. This is okay for the first chapter, but that's not going to bode well for 30 chapters. Let's see if it can give us just a general prompt we can use. So what I've asked is, can you make this a general prompt that can be used across a whole book, all chapters? So let's see what that does for us. While that is producing something, let's ask the same question in ChatGPT. And while those are producing, I am just going to add this as step 3. Keep in mind, you can always tweak these and see other things that you might want in there. Here, it's letting us know that with a mixture of uncertainty, a complex protagonist in a dangerous setting confronts adversary. Now, is that going to be used across all of the chapters? Probably not. Are they always going to be inside of the futuristic city? What if they're somewhere else? So again, you have to pay attention to what's inside of your style. Let's see what chat gives us. So chat kind of gives us something that is better suited to go across all of your chapters. So for style, it says, write a novel that navigates through a dark, gritty, and suspenseful landscape. Employ a mixture of long, complex sentences and short, impactful ones to build tension, and use dialogue that resonates with sarcasm, assertiveness, and vulnerability. Rich, descriptive language and imagery should convey the atmospheric setting. Now, that could actually be used across all chapters. The one thing that I would add here is, if you don't put your POV anywhere else, I would add it here. And if you need extra space, of course, use the dashes in between. I would state that it is a third person or a first person. And depending on what the tense is, I would indicate whether it is present or past tense, because there are times when the AI will not be consistent. So make sure you're adding that. For genre and subgenre, it's saying to craft a novel set in a universe that blends urban science fiction with possible cyberpunk elements. The story should explore themes of self-discovery, ancient technology, empowerment, interstellar politics. You want to characterize the world with dark streets, eerie neon lights, decay, weaving a plot that balances action, mystery, and emotional depth. Now, that could be used across all of them. So that's why I'm saying, if you want to use your chapter outline and show each chapter individually, there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, why don't we play with that? Let me go ahead and grab all of this information here from step 1. And we're actually going to grab something that I wrote recently in a project. So let's go snag something. I'm going to go ahead and go look at my projects. And let's take a look at this one right here. I'm going to take a look at my chapter generations. So let's take a look at, tell you what, not that one. I am going to take a look at the information I pulled for one of my past video recordings. Let's go into Story Engine and take a look at some of the prose that was generated. Let's go ahead and come down and let's see Jack's POV. So let's go ahead and take a look at his beats. This is chapter 8. We are looking at 12 beats. Let's take a look and see what it says. Again, this is a great way to be able to do something very specific for every single one of your chapters. Here it's telling me that the central themes appear to focus on friendship, mystery, horror, and a quest for truth. The story takes place in a small town. We know that the plot revolves around unraveling a mystery and surviving the encounter with a dangerous cult. We know who the characters are and their character types. We know the tone and mood. So this is really important. Your tone and mood for this specific chapter is dark, suspenseful, and filled with tension. We know that the pacing is intense and fast moving. We know what the conflict and the stakes are for that chapter. We know what the symbolism and imagery is. We can also go in and look at the world building, the visual sensory details. It's saying that they're likely described in intense detail, emphasizing the horror and mystery. Now, we're going to take a look at all this. Let's see what it actually does when we use our second prompt. Let's go back into our core, which is our style, and let's grab our prompt. Let's go to step number 2. We are going to grab that, and let's see what that gives us. Here it's saying, write a suspenseful scene where friends discover a horrifying ritual. Use intense, detailed descriptions with a mix of short, punchy sentences and longer ones to convey fear, disbelief, and urgency. For the genre and subgenre, it says to create a dark fantasy horror scene in a small town centered around a hidden world of ancient rituals, mysterious supernatural entities. The tone should be dark and filled with tension, unraveling a terrifying mystery. So again, you can do this for every single one of your chapters. The only thing that I will advise you to do is make sure you're stating that it is either first or third person, and whether it is past tense or present tense. We can also try the same thing with Claude and see what Claude does for us. I'm going to grab this information. We're going to put that same information, which was the chapter story beats, and transfer that over into Claude and see what Claude will do for us. And this time I actually did not even put in the information for the chapter. Now, here's a summary. This is not what I asked for. So I actually have to wait for it to finish. So it was specific. I wanted it to do exactly what I gave them. This is why I do not tend to use Claude for this. Even if you have to use ChatGPT 3.5, I would prefer to use 3 here. Let's take a look and see what 3 does. Again, I'm using the same information. Let's just for kicks, leave it as genre and see what it does. And like I said, we're in 3.5. So if you don't pay for 4, let's see what 3.5 will do for you. Even 3.5 is going to give you adequate information about your content. Look at all this information that it did. And look, it even identified that it is horror fiction. It lets you know what the central themes are for that one specific chapter. You can do this for every single chapter. So let's go back in and we are going to grab this one again and let's ask Chat to give it to us. So let's see what Chat gives us. Again, I recommend Claude. You can definitely play in there, but by far, I feel that both ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 give you information. I want you to take a look at the difference. The writing prompt says that it's a chilling forest. A group stumbles upon a sinister ritual that blurs reality and the supernatural. Yes, it does okay, but you may have to take one step further if you're using 3.5. You may have to use step 3 just to get it to give you a generalized reading of the content. Here it says, throughout the eerie tale evoke a pervasive sense of fear and unease as characters encounter supernatural horrors. Employ rich descriptions, tension, dialogue, and vary the sentence structure to build suspense. And you want to be able to suck your readers in to an unsettling atmosphere. Remember, this was for horror fiction. Now, it does pretty good for 3.5, but as you can see, the information that 4 gave was a bit sharper. Let's see what a general prompt would give us. Keep in mind, because I said prompt, it only gave me 1, but if I use that same prompt again, and I say, can you make this create a general prompt for style, for the style, and one for the genre that can be used across a whole book. So you'll have to specify if you want it for each one, if you want something that's general. Again, play around with the prompts and see what works best for you. Here it says, create a dark fantasy horror novel set in a mysterious small town. It's letting you know what needs to be inside of there. So again, these are ways that you can move forward. Now, one of the things that I found really interesting, you can definitely use AI written content that you have generated, as I displayed earlier. You can use beats from an existing body that you are working on. I just showed you how that works. But the other thing that you can do is say, I have 5 books written in a series, and I did all of that prior to AI writing. And maybe I want to match the tone or voice of that character. What I could do is grab my female information and my male information, and I could use the prompts for that. Let me go ahead and show you what it does. I'm actually going to grab the excerpt that I have. So let's go ahead and take a look, see where that takes us. So it says, given the extensive excerpt that I provided, chat's going to try and analyze both the genre and the style. So for the genre, it talks about personal growth, the emotional challenges, love. There may also be subtext of loss, dealing with past trauma. So it's pinpointing everything it sees inside of my body of work. The pacing seems to unfold at a moderate pace. It balances the action and dialogue with some introspection and background information. The personal stakes are evident. You have symbolism and imagery that's inside of there. There's some nursery rhyme triggers, painful memories, and that is something that's inside of the book. There are literary devices used for imagery, internal monologues, metaphors. There is language. So this right here for the language is really important because that describes how my characters are going to come across. There's some explicit language, there's vivid descriptions, it's a casual tone. You want to take a look at the content that is being written and how you can convey that same feel. It has rich and detailed sensory information. It pays attention to appearance, sound, and smell. So now going down to our style, it says that it's casual and conversational. The POV is first person, allowing for an intimate access to the character's thoughts. As you can see, it really pinpoints. If you really want to try and match your voice, this is a good way to do it. I'm going to go back and grab the prompt over here for the second step. Let's go ahead and ask it to break that content down. It's going to focus on just this information. So it might only give me information for this one chapter. And then I may have to ask it to give me something general, or you can say to write me a 40-word prompt to direct an AI in the generation of prose across multiple chapters that fit this style. You could definitely change the prompt up that way. And again, it seems to have missed the context. Let's go back. I know that chat has been having some issues over the past, I'd say 3-4 days. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I've been to the down detector to see what's going on with it, and I have noticed that there have been situations where maybe it's down or not working at peak capacity. Just for kicks, why don't we just grab that information again? Let's grab our prompt again, this one right here, and we are going to put that right here inside of our request. So now we have step 2, and we have included everything that chat just gave us. So here it's letting me know to write a first-person narrative capturing a moment in a contemporary work setting. Use casual language. You want to use rich imagery, introspection to convey emotional intensity, vulnerability. You can use both humor and dramatic elements. Now for the genre and subgenre, it says to write a scene set on a long international flight. This is specific to this one chapter. But if I go back in and I ask it to give me something specific or generalized for the whole book, let's see what it'll give us. I wonder if it's going to tell us that it doesn't have any context. Oh, now it's remembering. Yep, Chadwick, you are just really a piece of work right now. So it says, write in first-person perspective, employing a casual and conversational tone, balance emotional intensity with humor, utilizing rich descriptive language, metaphor, imagery, maintain a moderate pace, reflecting both action and introspection. Character voices should be distinctive and naturalistic. So again, think about some of the ways that you want your story to sound. One of the things that I would add in here is that I would want it to have a cinematic feel set in a contemporary times, focusing on themes of relationship, personal growth, love. In the very beginning, when I was doing some of these prompts, I did this in a class through Sudowrite a while back. And what I found interesting is that when I did this a couple of months back and I used the same exact prompts, I found that ChatGPT was pulling different information. I'd be interested in seeing what chat pulls even a week or 2 weeks from now. Let me show you what some of that information that it pulled actually looked like. This was one of the little sessions that I did during an author hour. And here you can see that within my prompts, I used something very similar. I said, describe the writing style of the sample below taken from the first chapter of a fiction novel. And this was actually the prompt that I just used, or that chapter excerpt. And you'll notice that it's the same prompt too. These were the different types of information that I was able to get out of ChatGPT 4 back then. And same thing for my MC, for my Dark Mafia. It actually pulled up different information. So for my Dark Mafia, It says to write a gritty first-person narrative from a mafia leader's perspective, incorporate intense dialogue filled with colloquial language and fast-paced action scenes, emphasize detailed descriptions, character introspection, and a balance of psychological insight and extreme drama. Keep the tone raw and explicit. I can tell you that back, 2-3 weeks ago or more, this is what it gave me with the same exact prompt. When I did the Mel's version, it told me to craft a first-person narrative set in a gritty underworld. The protagonist grapples with conflicted emotions about a dangerous romance. I would use romanticism there. Use colloquial, explicit language, and you want it to depict intense, high-stakes situations, explicit erotic encounters, and introspective reflections, maintaining suspenseful thought. Those are some of the things that I use when I'm writing. That came straight from one of my books, from one of my series that I wrote maybe 2.5 years ago. And here's another example. Generating a narrative featuring a complex, gritty romanticism within the dark underworld. Characters should be emotionally layered with a fierce, stubborn female lead and a dominant, protective male. Integrate sharp dialogue, detailed internal thoughts, and escalating sexual tension. And I even did Highland romance to craft a medieval historical fiction. So again, think about the different stories that you have, what you're wanting to convey. I'm going to go back and let's take a look at one of the other things that I've pulled today. Let's take a look at the PNR shifter. So let's go look at the prompts. Let's go ahead and grab this whole thing right here. While this is processing, we're going to also grab the other prompt that I used. So let's go ahead and plug this in. Let's go get our excerpt. We are going to use the shifter. This is a shifter romance, and this is from the female's POV. Let's take a look at what that gives us. While we're waiting for that to come up, I'm actually going to go grab my original prompt so that you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go back into our prompts and I'm going to call this step 1B because that is our longer prompt. And let's call this one step 1B. Or 1A. Here it says, write in first-person perspective, employing a casual conversational tone, balance emotional intensity with humor, using rich descriptive language, metaphors, imagery, maintain a moderate pace. It is set in a contemporary time, focusing on themes of relationship, personal growth, love. So as you can see, using some of the same prompts, it's interesting that it's not giving me more of that grit that I was looking for originally. Make sure that you're really pulling a very solid piece that you're wanting the AI to pinpoint. Let's go ahead and grab our step 2 and see what it does. Let's just see if it remembers. Here it's saying, write a passage depicting a character's return to their eerie ancestral home, filled with emotional resonance, vivid imagery, and foreboding sense of hidden supernatural secrets. Now, that will work well for that first chapter, but again, it's not something that I can use across the whole book. So I could go back and ask for number 3. So across all chapters, it would say, throughout the novel, weave a narrative that explores a character's emotional connection to their haunting past. Use vivid imagery, poetic language, and an underlying current of supernatural mystery to depict the journey. Now, it's also saying to set it in a mysterious southern locale You want it to have magic and tradition, craft a story where the protagonist grapples with a dark and supernatural legacy. That's okay for her. Let's take a look at what it might say for the Mel's perspective. And I want to use that very first one. Again, this is the prompt that I generally use all the time. And right now, I really do think that something's a little amiss with ChatGPT 4. So let's go ahead and see which one we pulled. Okay, so we went ahead and pulled the shifter. So let's pull the shifter Mel this time. Let's see what it tells us about our shifter Mel. Now, technically, you could take the information for the male and the information for the female, and you could ask to have them combined together as well. So it's giving me what the imagery looks like. It's telling me that it's a first-person POV. It's talking about the dialogue, the supernatural elements. We already know that this is a PNR shifter. So let's go ahead and grab the prompt that we're going to take a look at for steps 2. What's interesting about this is that I used the shorter content here. So I used the shorter prompt, and as you can see, chat is really giving me a lot of different responses tonight. Just goes to show that AI can be very unpredictable at times. So again, it's missing the sample that it just gave me. So let's go ahead and grab that, since chat is having a little bit of difficulty today. And let's also grab this because I could just see it telling me that it doesn't know what to do with it. And here we go. So for the style, it says to write a first-person narrative filled with immersive imagery and emotional complexity, blending mystery, suspense, and supernatural elements within a Southern Gothic setting. I'm okay with that. I would be okay to use that across all of my chapters, but then I would have to indicate whether it was the male's perspective or the female's perspective. For the genre, it says to compose a story that interweaves elements of thriller and fantasy set in a decaying atmosphere reminiscent of Southern Gothic fiction. Utilize strong dialogue, action-packed scenes, complex character relationships, and cliffhangers to create a world filled with moral. You want to make sure that you are embodying everything within your story. Again, if you have cliffhangers, make sure that you are indicating that. Again, cliffhangers are a huge thing for me, so I don't mind having that inside of the genre, indicating to the AI to use cliffhangers to create a world filled with moral uncertainty and the unresolved questions that might take place therein. Play with ChatGPT 4. See what you can get the tool to spit out for you. Again, you can use these prompts on your prior written work. Pick out different, say you have a motorcycle club, you can try and pull this information on your opening chapters for your male and the opening chapter for your female. Compare them. Go in about midway, find a really gritty action scene or a fight scene, run it on that, and you'll be amazed at the differences between what a fight scene will pull versus a normal introduction. Find a scene where there's an intimate moment. We already know that ChatGPT 4 is not going to pull that for you, but you might even be able to kind of trick the system in Sudowrite. We can play with that. I wouldn't mind taking a look and see if Sudowrite would actually do that for us. Let's see. Where would be the best place to do that? Let's try in here. Let's see what it will do for us in this section right here. I'm actually going to go in and let's pull a couple of things. I'm going to actually pull all of these, and I'm going to go back into Story Engine. I'm just going to place them here in the character list just to keep track of them. Well, it's a little too long, so let's do it right here. Now that I have it in here, I can come back inside of the outline section. I'm just using it for a holding just because I want to come back in here and play with the synopsis. So let's go back out and grab our Dark Mafia Mill. So let's come in here and let's see what it does inside a Story Engine. I'm not sure if it'll work better in the synopsis or inside of the outline. So I'm going to stick this in the section for holding because it's 1,400 words. And I'm going to come over here to the outline. Let's see, let's grab the first one. So I'm going to take this prompt and see if it'll actually give me information from the brain dump. Right now, we're just experimenting, seeing what we can do to manipulate the AI. Now, I could just copy all of that, go back over into our brain dump because I can have up to 2,000 words there. And let's see what that does. So it doesn't give me a whole lot, but I want to see what it will do if I grab the information and do it inside of the outline. So let's see what it does inside of the outline. I'm going to clear the outline and I'm going to come over to the brain dump and let's see what the brain dump. Let's copy all that and let's see what this will tell me. Let's see if it'll describe the writing style in here. So I have to have at least something in here. So I just said genre and let's see what it does. So it's letting me know that the writing style, what the description is. It's giving me a very small little breakdown of content. Now, what I'm most interested in is this information right up here. The writing style of the sample provided is characterized by an intimate first-person POV, as well as its focus on the protagonist's thoughts and observations. The narrative is filled with internal monologue, which reveals the protagonist's thoughts and intentions, giving the reader a deeper understanding of the character. The language is descriptive and evocative, with a focus on the physical and emotional reactions of the characters. And the dialogue is natural and engaging, creating an immersive experience for the reader. Now, you could come all the way down here now that it is finished, and we are going to get rid of all this. I'm sure you all know by now, I just really love to go in and manipulate the system left and right. So now I want to go ahead and come down and find my step 2. And let's see what step 2 does. Now remember, I didn't even use the long prompt that I have with all of the different options to pull. So now I'm going to tell it, step 2, write me a 40-word prompt to direct an AI in the generation of prose that fits the style of this voice. So let's see what it does. Now keep in mind, this does eat words. So you could do it there, but it's not necessarily going to give you everything that you're looking for. But you can play around in there. You can definitely put within your brain dump, if I were to take my sample and put the whole sample inside of my brain dump, let's see what it gives us as far as a difference that we can maybe compare to chat. So let's take a look at what Match My Style will give us. Let's come up here, do this. Now, I'm going to go into style. It says paste up to 2,000 words. So let's go ahead and put that in there and let's see what that is. Here it's saying it's told in third person limited. The vocabulary is complex, formal. Sentence structures vary in length and complexity. Pacing. So all of these items that it's pulling up, the vocabulary, the word choices, all of this information, if you run match your style and if you like what Sudowrite is pulling up, you can always copy this and save this information. You could even come over here and plug this in, and you could ask Chat to give you each one of these items. So you could make your own template of things that you would like to have it pull. The other way that you could set up something like this is to ask ChatGPT what type of information would be needed for deciding the stylistic style of the prose and story elements. But these are some of the basic things that Sudowrite pulls in, which is a lot less than the list that I actually pulled. So let me grab this and I will save that. That way y'all can take a look at that too. Now, I can send this to a doc, and whenever it sends it to a doc, it's going to put it right into Sudowrite proper, and you'll have all that information. Now, if I go back into Story Engine, the only issue that I have is that it did not give me my information. So that means that if I want to do that again, I'm going to actually have to put that in there again. So to me, that's kind of like a glitch that's within the system, because if I hit to generate, then I can't send it over. But if I hit to send it over, then it basically eats my words and it doesn't create the content for me. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So again, I'm taking the same thing, and remember, it's eating up my words. If I hit send to doc, it is going to send it to doc and it's not going to give me what I want. So I'm going to hit next. I'm going to compress it. And this is all it gave me. Third person limited narration with complex vocabulary, vivid sensory descriptions and fast-paced action, realistic dialogue and reoccurring themes and danger. Now, that's not bad, but if you think about the content that it pulled, it's really not giving me the content that I may want inside of my style box. This is for my mafia guy. So let's go ahead and take a look at our dark mafia guy information. I'm going to grab this and let's just save this real quick. I'm going to put it down at the very bottom, just because I told y'all that I would go ahead and provide that as well. So let me go back in and let's take a look. I'm going to go back in and grab that information again. So I'm going to ask it just the simple prompt. Let's see what it'll do. And let me go back in and grab just my mill. Now remember, I could even do this with the more detailed one if I wanted to. Prompt that. So here it gave me an intimate first-person perspective. It's told from the character, the mill's point of view. I'm going to go over and let this finish. Now, why did it turn orangey red? Because it has some very sexually charged material. There's no sexual content, but there's sexually charged material, and chat doesn't always like that. Now, here it gave me a lot more information, and remember, I used the smaller prompt this time. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this because I have a feeling that it's going to tell me that it does not remember what I have. Let's see what chat gives us. On the same body or excerpt that I loaded into Sudo, does this show the tone of the story and the voice / tone of the character? So here are some more words that I can use. The tone of the story is characterized by suspense, tension, sexual undertones, an intricate plot development, modern urban language. So there's a lot of information here that you can actually pull and use. Let's go ahead and see what it does with this one. Let's get that last prompt. And again, right now I do feel that chat is a little unpredictable. So for the general across all of the chapters, it states to write a first-person narrative that combines an intimate perspective with a controversial tone, rich in sensual imagery, action, and emotional complexity. The story should unfold through a blend of internal monologues, suspenseful events, sexual undertones, and plot development. So to me, it gave me content when I asked for it to be generalized, which is actually interesting. You would have thought it would have been the other way around. Here it says create a suspense-driven thriller with elements of crime and romance. I would actually change that to romanticism. The narrative should explore hidden identities, shadowy motivations, and backstories, set in a world filled with danger and intrigue. Incorporate plot twists, action-packed sequences, intense character dynamics. So there's a lot of information in here and a lot of good information, but there's a lot more than 40 words. So you would need to pare it down and keep just the content that you want for this specific genre. I would kill areas that use the word romance because we know that's kind of what generates, we're in this together, or let's do this. And you will see that over and over again if you have romance in here. Romanticism seems to do better. Now you could find another word for it. Intimacy can work, but again, romance will give you some of those repeat phrases that people have come to just really loathe. So romanticism, if you're going to have anything that says romance, replace it with romantism. And the other thing that you can do is put a whole bunch of little hyphens in between some of these, and just so that you know that you can have 40 words. Let's see how many words this is. So this is actually 74 words. So you could take this and you could split it into two, and you could take out stuff like the romance aspect should be weaved into the plot. Well, should it be weaved into the plot on every single chapter? No. So there are some things that you can take out. You definitely want this first part, create a suspenseful driven thriller with elements of crime, and I would change that to romanticism. The narrative should explore hidden identities, shadowy motivations, and backstories. Now, do we want that to be done in all of them? Now, you could definitely say this, and you could say, let's see, romantic, set in a world filled with danger. So, danger and intrigue. It says to incorporate plot twists, action-packed sequences, intense character dynamics. All of that is good. An underlying tension. We don't need it to say that keeps the readers on their seat. Just say an underlying tension. So that's already taken us down to 59. You could say romanticism, and if you do that, you can kill all of this. That is already down to 56 words. Adding depth and emotional resonance. So focus on crafting multidimensional characters and a complex, engaging storyline that unravels throughout the book. So some of this I would just kill because we don't really need all of that. You could ask it to focus on crafting multidimensional characters. That's okay. I think that would actually be good. And that gives us 46. So you could do things like this until you get to 40. Now you have a total of 40. You could actually take this now and add this into the appropriate field down here. Let's take a look at the other prompt. Now for style, let's see how many words that was. So that one is 58. Write a first-person narrative, combines an intimate perspective with a first-person narrative with an intimate perspective, controversial tone, rich and sensual imagery, action, and emotional complexity. So we're still at 57. We can say, add a blend of internal monologues, suspenseful events, sexual undertones, and intricate plot development. Now, we don't really need that right there. Utilize modern urban language to craft engaging dialogue, or just say for dialogue, and maintain a sense of mystery and intrigue. And here you could just say maintain. So that leaves you with 5 words to kill. I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time, but if it's just a few words and you can't seem to kill them or pare your content down enough, then definitely do this. Now, do you need narrative? Not really. You could say first person. You could say past tense. And so we have 40 there. You could now take this and could potentially put it in here. And now you're good to go. Again, play around with what you want to put inside of here. You could even put something just as simple as the descriptor words that you create for your character. Find 5 of them that describe your character and the way that your character would speak, and then go in and find at least 5 descriptor words that describe your setting or the tone of the scene that's going to unfold. And you could simply just go in and under style, you could just say story tone. And then you could also say character tone / voice. And then you would add your 5 descriptor words. And you could also state your POV. You could state that it's first person, past tense, and you still have quite a few words. So depending on what your story tone was, you could say that it is dark, gritty, edgy. Maybe it's action-packed. It could be intense. Let's see. It could be full of mystery. And then your character voice, you would just add some descriptors. What about your character? Is your character brooding? Is he domineering, brooding? Is he loyal? Maybe he has no filter. Maybe he's filterless and he's protective. So again, think about the different things that you can describe. If you want imagery, you can definitely state that too. Maybe you want sentence variety. some short and punchy. You could also say use descriptive imagery and vivid descriptions. And you could also state to write with all 5 senses. Again, you still have 3 words that you can put in there. Now, one of the things that you have to remember is that the last 3 words here are what is going to be latched onto. So if this is a dark mafia romance, then I might want to say mafioso, and I could say that it's gritty and dark, and I'm done. So play around with the content that you are trying to generate. Again, use the prompts. You can use the prompts with your prior written content and play around with that to see what you can use for future bodies. Take a look and ask the AI to analyze the writing. That's another thing that you can do. So if you want to know what your writing style is, you can actually go in there and ask it. So say I want to know what my writing style is. We'll grab this one because it shouldn't slap my hand. So provide a 40-word prompt for style and a 40-word prompt for genre using this excerpt. Actually, let's ask the AI to evaluate. Please evaluate this writing sample and tell me about it from a literary standpoint when it comes to style, tone, and genre. Let's see what it says. And again, you can do the same thing. Have the AI analyze your content. Have it tell you about your writing style. So here, it's giving me information. It's telling me that the passage is written in first person, offering an intimate insight into the protagonist's thoughts and feelings. It lets the reader experience it through emotions. The imagery, the writing is rich in sensual and visual imagery. So if you want sensual and visual imagery, put that into your scene, into your pay close attention to physical appearance. You can ask for it to paint a vivid picture. You can ask it to have interplay between dialogue and internal monologues. Think about the things you can ask the AI when analyzing your content. Let's ask it. Now that we have that, again, there's always more than one way to obtain information. So now let's see what it does with writing the prompts this way. Now, the tone, it talks about it being conversational and it is sensual. There, underneath, there's a casual banter and flirtation. It's humorous in places. It gives me the genre information. It's a character-driven narrative. I do have a writing sample. It states that it's well-crafted, engaging, showcasing a strong grasp of character development, dialogue, and description, and it appears to be part of a character-driven contemporary romance thriller, which is true. It has sensual undertones and underlying tension. So take a look, evaluate your work, find elements of it that you can then turn into a prompt. So turning that into a prompt after the evaluation, write a first-person narrative filled with sensual imagery, modern slang, that's a really good one, modern slang, and a blend of witty dialogue and internal monologue. Capture the conversational tone and include both humorous, intense elements. For the genre, create a scene with a contemporary romantic thriller. Include flirtatious interactions between characters, underlying tension, and hints of danger. Make the setting modern with a focus on character-driven narrative and emotional reactions. So again, I'd be really careful with romance. I'd probably make that romanticism. But again, if you take one thing from this session today, it's to play around with what you can get ChatGPT to spit out and give you. Make the tool work for you. It's a resource. You just have to figure out how to ask it questions and how to extract the information. And what worked yesterday, what worked 2 hours ago, what worked 2 months ago may not work for you. So you're constantly having to tweak your prompts and make them work for you. Every time there's a change with the AI, it's going to impact your prompts. So always keep that in mind. Prompts are not a one size fits all. It might work for this one piece, but the next time you go in to try and grab something for another body of work, you may have to tweak your prompts. So always keep that in mind. And there you have it, folks. With these techniques, you'll be able to craft incredible style and genre prompts, opening doors to a new realm of storytelling and creativity. I hope this tutorial has inspired you, and I can't wait to see what you'll create. Remember, the magic happens when you practice and experiment. So don't be afraid to try out new methods, different prompts, and play around with genres and styles and how you can embody them or their flavor within a prompt. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that bell so you won't miss any future content. Feel free to drop a comment below, or you can reach out to us on the AI Writers Connection Discord. I'd love to hear from you all, and we're always here to help. Until next time, keep writing, keep innovating, and happy creating. This is Marigold from AI Writers Connection, signing off.